The Elder Scrolls franchise is one which is steeped in lore, widely loved game mechanics, 5-star writing, and some of the best high fantasy in the video game industry. The franchise started out in 1994 with the release of the Elder Scrolls Arena, a DOS game with basic mechanics and even more basic graphics. Bethesda Softworks, the developers of the franchise, followed this up with Daggerfall, which became more focused on the gameplay than the story, with improvements being made to the code and the way the game worked. Daggerfall was the first game to feature a 3D camera which allowed the player to freely look around using the mouse. Let's start off looking at some of the game's visual features. When Skyrim was released in 2011, it was praised for having some of the most detailed and realistic graphics in both the Elder Scrolls franchise and the world of video games in general. Throughout the course of the year, it became almost infamous for requiring some of the most top-notch hardware available. As time went on, more and more user-created content, also known as mods, was made by adoring fans of the game, which have led to an influx of screenshots from players competing for who can get their game to look the most realistic. There are some examples of mods which could be called unnecessary, but are popular nonetheless.
Yeah!
A large part of Skyrim's gameplay is based on the player interacting with the various characters in the game. As such, voice talent was a big emphasis for Bethesda during development. The previous title, Oblivion, although featuring more A-list voices than Skyrim, with talents such as Patrick Stewart, Sean Bean and Terence Stamp, only had a total of 14 voice actors spread across potentially hundreds of NPCs dotted around the world. Bethesda employed over 70 voice actors for Skyrim. Following the Bethesda tradition, after a lot of the fans of the series asked for a more PC-friendly interface, Bethesda decided to act on this and, well, they decided to design the game for consoles. The game's UI elements and menu system have clearly been designed in this way. It features a basic menu layout with the relevant keys or buttons displayed at the bottom of the screen and large headings pointing out to the player what they're looking at. Some fans accused Bethesda of dumbing down the games, due to the initial complexity of the interfaces in the third game, Morrowind. When it comes to controls, Skyrim's layout for both keyboard and gamepad break away from the industry standard layout. The game also features completely rebindable keys on all three platforms. The player can choose between third and first person gameplay at will. Another big focus for Bethesda during development of both Skyrim and the previous Elder Scrolls titles was immersion. As a result of this, there are no cutscenes in the game. There are occasional moments when the game takes control of the player character's movement, allowing certain scripted events to take place. Other than this, there is no breaking gameplay from start to finish. World detail was a big focus for Bethesda when developing Skyrim. Todd Howard, the game's director, was quoted as saying he wanted to make a game where you could look at a fork sitting on a table in close detail, then leave the house, look at a mountain and be able to climb to the summit. From set-up scenes that the player can discover around the world to things like buckets set into holes as makeshift toilets, Bethesda managed to achieve both ends of this game world scale very effectively. Overall, Bethesda managed an unprecedented level of detail and immersion within Skyrim, which is why I would give the visual aspects of the game a mark of 80 out of 100. Now let's talk about the gameplay. The game is entirely single player with no online features whatsoever, which didn't come as a surprise considering this has been the case for every title in the series. It is quest-based, with a main quest line serving as the game's central narrative, and a huge array of side quests and small tasks for the player to complete. It was the first game in the series to feature what are called Radiant quests. This is a mechanic where random quests take any number of values and put them into one objective, effectively giving the player infinite objectives.
Take this and hold on to it. I'll be back for it later. I'll pay you good. Don't lose it.
The game is set in Skyrim, one of the many provinces of the game's larger setting, Tamriel. It is primarily based on countries like Norway, with the inhabitants of Skyrim being tall, fair-haired folk with a hardy attitude to life. One recurring theme throughout the game is the civil war, which is taking place between the two rival factions, the native tree-hugging Stormcloaks and the game's version of the EDL, the Imperial Legion, originating from the southern province of Cyrodiil. Overall, I think Bethesda put a lot of effort into getting the player as immersed as possible in the game, but they also missed out on optimizing the game for the PC, which, as everyone watching at home knows, is the superior platform. This, coupled with the larger focus on the console market than the PC market, means Skyrim's gameplay gets a 75 out of 100 from me.